And it's a powerful reminder. The video is a powerful reminder, and that's kind of the purpose of this picture too, that this is what depressed people often look like. Not always, but they often can look like. And so to pay attention to those that are around us. Sorry, get choked up. No, I'm not sorry. I always say I'm not supposed to say sorry when I get choked up, and then I say sorry when I get choked up. So I'm sorry for being sorry about being choked up.
We're sorry you're sorry.
I appreciate that. So at that point, obviously I knew some things needed to change for me personally. It's affected my role, my sense of identity. I'm an ordained pastor. I'm a department director at Parkview. I'm respected. I'm the chairperson of the ethics. I'm helpful and strong. I'm not one of these people that's needy and needs other people and that sort of thing. I wear a suit when I go to work. Look at me. That sort of thing. Like it had an impact on my sense of who I was at work, but also my sense of who I was overall. And to say it succinctly, the work that I enjoyed for so long was killing me. And I don't like to be dramatic, but this actually is just true. It actually was killing me. And unfortunately, it's happened for a lot of teachers, healthcare workers, law enforcement officers, and others. So let's talk about the personal path. This is really the part that we skip over or we patronize people when we talk about how do you personally recover. So we're not going to do that. I'm not going to say, how do you personally recover? Drink water, get your rest, eat nutritious food. Yes, of course, all of those things. But we're not going to say those things. We're going to go in a little different direction. So the prerequisite before we even start talking about options for recovery is you have to recognize what's going on. It is incredibly difficult to recognize your own burnout. And if you've been there and that's part of your past, you may look back and say, now I see with 100% clarity what was going on and how burned out I was, but at the time it was really hard for me to see. And in talking with colleagues who've been through something similar, I think this is the rule, not the exception. It's the rule that's really hard to see about yourself. You may even say literally out loud, I'm so burned out, but then if somebody's like, are you really experiencing burnout and really you're like, wow, no, I'm fine. And so acknowledging it can be really difficult. So the first step is acknowledging and saying, this is really where I'm at. Option number one, and you notice these are not steps, these are options, because I think everybody's experience is different. So when we talked about organizationally or as leaders, we talked about steps. Now we're talking about options. Option number one, adjust your personal expectations of yourself. For those of us who are successful in our careers, and as nurse leaders, somebody decided at some point you were successful in your career and gave you an opportunity to be a leader. We can have very high expectations of ourselves. I forget who said it, that if other people talked to me the way I talk to me, I wouldn't be their friend. So sometimes those expectations live inside of our own heads so significantly that they're our worst enemy. Doesn't mean that there's not things happening on the outside that are also really difficult, but those things that are inside you can't get away from. You can't run away from your own expectations of yourself. And so stepping back and saying, if I was counseling a friend that had a similar role to me, and they were carrying all these burdens, all these expectations, would I think that was fair? And if so, then fine, move on to a different option. If not, then maybe it's time to reevaluate your expectations of yourself. And similarly, number two, the second option is to decrease your focus and intensity. Boy, healthcare is intense, isn't it? It's a little bit of a high almost all the time because there's always somebody new coming on. There's always some new thing that's happening, some drama that's happening. But that intensity can seep its way into our minds to where we live in fight or flight all the darn time. We go home and we're still feeling it. We're feeling it in our body all the time. So finding ways we could say, I can't turn down the dial of the intensity that's outside of me. Are there ways for me to turn down that dial inside of me? Ways for me to monitor my thoughts and my emotions and the way I engage with these things. Third of all, let's talk about your nervous system, because fight or flight is that nervous system response. And I'm not a clinical person, but this is part of my story and experience, that my AFib later was diagnosed as vaguely mediated AFib, which is as I understand, kind of uncommon to actually get a doctor to say that we think this is why you had AFib. And at least that's what my doctor told me. He said, I don't usually tell people why I think they had AFib, but I think yours was vaguely mediated. In other words, your vagus nerve throughout your body was in such sorry state that it actually threw your heart out of rhythm. So I'd been telling people for a little while before that appointment that I think the stress is having a physical effect on me. And I didn't expect my electrophysiologist to actually agree with me, but he's like, yeah, I think so. I think it was actually the stress through your system that led you to really a medical crisis. So we're going to do an exercise together that I'm not qualified to lead, but I don't care. If you've done some of these exercises before, you'll recognize some of this feeling, but if you haven't, I hope you'll indulge me. So if you have glasses on, I'll ask you to take your glasses off for just a moment. And then you don't have to close your eyes or anything like that, but take your middle fingers, place them on your eye socket down here, and gently, we're not pressing too hard, just a little bit of circles. If you can do 6 to 8 circles there. Then once you've done that, slide your finger on your face around your temple area. And same thing there, 6 to 8 circles. And then once you've got those circles in, you're going to slide above your eyebrow and down to the top of your nose, in between your eyebrows right here to that thin place where there's not much flesh over the bone, and do some little circles in there, 6 to 8. And then you're going to go backtrack and go back to your temples, 6 to 8 circles there. And then sliding down back to your original spot. And keep doing that for one more rep here. And this time, think about the fact that you have a nervous system and that you have this vagus nerve that runs through all of your body and affects how you feel, is affected by the stimuli that you experience on a daily basis. And that while that vagus nerve is stimulated, maybe in negative ways a lot, that you have some control to be able to do little things like this to calm your vagus nerve. Now, some of you have eaten and done that. You're sure to fall asleep before I'm done with the talk, so that's not a very good investment for me to make sure you're attentive the rest of the time. Have some of you done things like this in the past, or you do them regularly?
There was something I saw online
Okay.
that you like put your hands up here and you like turn your head this way.
Mm-hmm.
I did it. I thought I was going to throw up.
Yeah.
I got so dizzy and I had to stop because it was not good.
Yeah. So that crossing the center line sort of
Yes.
stuff, and
I don't recommend that.
so somebody other than me could tell you if that's a sign you need to do more of it, or a sign never do it again, right? Yeah, absolutely. But I think we talk a lot about our other systems, right? Our circulatory system, our cardiovascular system, our kidneys, our stomach, those sorts of things. We don't often talk about our nervous system, but our nervous system is profoundly impacted by what we're experiencing: trauma, distress, stress, the constant fight or flight, and certainly burnout is a place where our nervous system may just be overloaded. So I'm not even a beginner at this, let alone an expert at this. Suki Baxter is the one that I found online. She's super strange. She sent me an email about horses this week. I was like, I don't know why we're talking about horses this week. I think she also sent to like 20,000 other people, but so we're not like buddies or anything. But finding something online, trying it out, hopefully it doesn't make you want to throw up. Maybe dial it back a little bit if you get to that experience. But the awareness, I think, is the biggest key. The awareness of, I have a nervous system. Do I feel like it's overloaded? Do I feel like I'm snapping too quickly about things? Do I feel like I'm always physically on edge, and when it's time to calm down, do I have to scroll infinitely to be able to keep my mind from going crazy, or can I actually relax? Option 4, make a bucket list. I know this always sounds like the crazy option. Like if I'm burned out, stressed out, I'm cynical all the time, now you're going to tell me to do all the things you ever wanted to do. That's a great idea at this point. But the reason why I include this as an option is because we get lost as helping leaders. You remember that quote from the article about nurse leaders? You get overlooked, you feel hyper responsible, and you feel guilty or blamed even when you take time for yourself and your self-care. Making a bucket list, okay, I'm going to be a little I'm going to be a little like my teenagers. Making a bucket list looks at all that and basically says, you know, like all that stuff that tells me I'm not important, that I don't have value, that I should feel guilty about doing the things that I want to do. I got to take all that and just push it to the side, and I'm going to affirm some of the things that I want to do and rediscover myself. There's an awful lot of people who spend their lives, their careers serving, and then they retire, and what are they? Miserable, because they have no idea. You know, I was talking with a friend who's, he's working his tail off, he's saving all his money, he's not in healthcare, he's in a different profession, but he said, and then I'm going to retire, I'm going to do whatever I want. And I said, Andy, you're going to have no idea what you want to do because you're spending all your time working your job and never thinking about what you want to do in your life. And so that's why I pair the bucket list idea with talking about burnout. And so Ben was a LDI speaker years ago for Parkview, and I started to latch on to some of his ideas back then. He since has put together a bucket list journal that kind of helps dummies like me walk through how do you create a bucket list and ways to think about it in different categories. He recommends that we get to 100 items on our bucket list. I have not been successful at listing 100 items, but I've gotten to 81. And I'm going to be literally an open book for you at the moment. So you can call out a number between 1 and 81, and I will tell you what I've got on my list and whether or not I've accomplished it yet. I've been working on it for about a year and a half. 77. And also I have the right of refusal if I don't want to read it out loud. So. No, I read that. That one's easy. Visit Laguna Beach, California again. Chris and I were there many years ago. She doesn't want to go back, but I do, so she'll probably go with me. She likes the beach, so she'll go along. And we have not checked that one off yet. One was the very first thing I listed. See an event in the Rose Bowl Stadium. So I'd like to see, I don't really care what event it is. Don't care about USC football, but I would like to see an event there. And no, have not checked that off yet. All the California ones remain unchecked. Interestingly, though, there is a C next to all the California ones. So we're going to get them all at some point when we go to California. Okay, another one. Maybe a non-California one. 22. Speak in a state, like do a presentation like this in a state that doesn't touch Indiana, and that one is checked off as of October. Chris and I drove down to Memphis. A Renal Healthcare Association had their national conference, and I was able to do a presentation similar to this one and one on ethics as well for them. In the Peabody Hotel, has anybody ever been to the Peabody Hotel? They have ducks in the lobby. Have you seen this? Okay, they have a procession of ducks in the morning duck crossing, and then they have a procession out in the afternoon. I had 2 talks. One was during the morning procession of ducks, or the morning procession happened while I'm trying to give the presentation, and the afternoon one was when they left in the afternoon. So if you listen to the recording, I do say a bad word when they process back out in the afternoon, because like, really? We're in the middle of the heart of the matter here, and now we're waiting for the ducks again. All right, let's do 2 more. That was 22. 44. Fly first class, and we did that on a very small flight. It was not very fancy, but I checked it off. It counts. That's right. It was technically there was like 3 first class seats, and we were in 2 of them. One more. 36. And one that's unchecked off yet. Speak outside the U.S. So I got outside the state. Still have to work on getting outside the U.S. But the way that this has changed the way I think about what I'm trying to, because I am a hyper-responsible person, I'm guessing. If we took a poll, most of you are too. So when you're hyper-responsible, sometimes it's easy for yourself to get lost in the things that you want to do. The real trick of the bucket list is when you're doing the things you want to do, there's a good chance you're a better person when you come back to work, and you're actually doing better work because of the things that you're doing for yourself outside of work. Now, we don't want to take a hard left turn and say self-care, but this is one practical way to get into that. Any bucket list items that any of you are currently working on right now?
No, I do have a question. Do you regret not using sedation when you got...
Is that on your bucket list?
Was it tolerable?
I would not do it again for fun.
Would you get sedation the next time if you had to?
And what made you decide to do that?
Well, I was more scared of medicine going into my... I'm not scared of medicine going into my body when it needs to be.